Welcome to Smart Brown Voices, your weekly podcast featuring diverse voices from around the world, giving you insights on how others made it big in their respective fields. Now sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready to be inspired. And don't forget to use hashtag #SmartBrownVoices to share insights, moments of wisdom, and things from the show that inspire you. And now, here's your host, social media nerd and technology activist, Mr. Mike Street.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Mr. Mike Street, and welcome back to episode 71 of Smart Brown Voices. This is the final episode of 2016. Can you believe it's been 2 years since we've been doing this show? So a big thank you to everyone out there who's been listening to the show. And really just want to say how much I appreciate everyone for, supporting us. Big shout out to iTunes for featuring us this year. That was a big game changer for us. So Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, and everything else in between. So today's episode was all about App Store optimization and putting an app into the app marketplace and finding success within the App Store. So our guest is Muoyo Okome, and introduce yourself to the Smart Brown Voices audience.
Hey guys, my name is Muoyo Okome. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. My family's from Nigeria. I'm not sure which way you want me to take it.
So you're in the app market, you launched your apps, you sold your company. So really walk us back to the beginning of it when you launched your first app and built it and launched it into the App Store.
At that time, I was working for Microsoft as a business manager in their Reston, Virginia office, and I kind of started learning about apps on the side just because I always like to get into different side projects to keep my mind, to kind of be entertained and have things to do. So apps was the thing I started to learn at the time. I was taking an online course from this guy named Trey Smith. And so I started developing games, and I also did entertainment apps, and I did photography apps. And I just found that games were working the best for me. And by the way, I wasn't coding any of these. I was what I would do is hire outsourcers using sites like odesk.com. So I'd hire people to do the coding, hire people to do the design, and then I would just work on the marketing and monetization side of it. And after a few months, I kind of started getting good at it and really started to see some success with it.
What was the first game that you launched into the App Store?
The first game, it was this game. It was called Mega Kart Madness, and I was trying to make my own version of Mario Kart, like this game a lot of people love for Nintendo. So I was trying to do that for the iPhone. It actually wasn't too commercially successful for me, but it was pretty cool for me just to have my first game actually live and have the feeling that I was responsible for bringing that into, 3,000 people's lives or whatever it was.
So how long did it take to get the game from concept to launch?
That one probably took about 6 or 7 months. And I would say based on the type of games, like the level of complexity that I was doing, that was longer than it should have took. And the reason why was just because I focused on a lot of things that weren't really critical to the success of the game. Like I want to change a character's mustache from one thing to another, or just a lot of minor things that weren't really going to affect the marketing impact because I wasn't really experienced in it.
So what did you learn in that 6-month window of time when you launched that app?
Man, so that was this was a while ago. This was like so that would have been in 2012 when it first went live, and a lot's changed since then. But even in those first 6 months, So at first the goal was, let's just get an app up. Let's get an app in the store and get it live. And that was great. then I said, okay, I'd like to get some more downloads. Then I started studying about marketing, and at that time, you could really make. At that time, I'd say about 65% of people were finding their apps via search. So I just learned a lot about how to do App Store optimization, which is like the App World's version of search engine optimization, and that's how I started to really increase my downloads. And I would just network with a lot of people who were in this world and learn their techniques and strategies, and try to give back to them as well. And yeah, just get better. It was really the marketing that was the main thing, and the main marketing that I used, like I said, was App Store optimization at that time.
So, so what are the top three things that, in terms of App Store optimization, that our listeners should know that's going to be really important for their app?
To be honest, if you're launching an app today, that's not the main area I would focus on. It still has some value. Um, you want to make sure you want to make sure that your app icon is attractive and it's going to match up with any of the top apps out there. You want to make sure that same thing with your screenshots, and you want to make sure that your description, copy, and app title make sense. So those would be some key basic things to do for App Store optimization. But I would, in terms of the marketing nowadays, it's really going to be a different story. The things that I see working now, influencer marketing is big. So partnering with people who have a relevant audience to the product you're trying to launch, that's very powerful right now. Paid marketing using Facebook advertising, which can be difficult, can be tricky. To be honest, it's something I'm still working on and learning about. But I think that's somewhere where I see results being driven. And then also for people who are doing games, if you can partner with a publisher who already has a large audience, then that can be a good move. It's tough to land those deals, but if you can do it, then it can definitely have a lot of impact on your business.
You were able to achieve 11 million downloads.
Yep.
So, what were some of the other strategies that you implemented in order to get that many downloads? And how many games have you launched into the app marketplace?
Yeah, I've published a bunch. So in the portfolio that I sold, that was probably, I'd say, at least 150 games. I mean, you have to understand that a lot of these things were experiments, just for me to learn what was working and what was not working. So um, it'd be a small amount of those 150 that accounted for the bulk of the downloads, but all of them taught me something. And for most of those downloads, it was probably honestly the stuff that we talked about before. Just just leveraging search and trying to show up at the top of these popular, well, at the top of relevant keywords. Like, say I was making an app on, I don't know, let's choose natural hair, right? Then I want to show up at the top of whatever folks who are searching for natural hair are going to be looking for, so that they search for those things and they're going to find me, right? And that's really the way that's really what drove most of my downloads. When I first started, I tried everything you can try. I tried posting on social media. I tried public relations. Tried to communicate with bloggers, and it's just I found that search was driving the bulk of my traffic, so I decided to just focus there.
So, you talked a lot about like how things have changed. You launched your first game in 2012, and now it's like 2017. So, what are some of the big and noticeable changes that you've seen within the app marketplace?
Right. Yeah, it's a maturing market, really. I mean, I wouldn't say it's all the way mature, but there are many more apps out there than when I started in 2012. And even in 2012, when I started, there were many more apps then than when the phone first came out in sure I can't remember if that's '09 or '07 or what. But so yeah, as there are more apps and it's more congested, it's just so like it's just harder to stand out. And it's it's almost like a lot of these keywords would be saturated. And so just trying to use those techniques really isn't going to cut it. And then also at the same time, the people who are controlling these app stores, Apple and Google, are raising the bar for quality for what they want to see. So what would have been acceptable back then may not be now. Um, and so yeah, I think the quality is important, and then just having a way, really having a business model, and really thinking about the marketing and how you're going to reach your end consumer.
You publish over 150 apps.
Right. Yeah.
How are you able to come up with so many ideas? Because 150, that's a lot.
Yeah. So what I was doing, like I said, a lot of them I would consider experiments, and I would go and research the marketplace and just see the kind of things that were being successful in the areas that I was interested in. And like I said, I eventually chose games, so I'd go every day in the morning. I would go look at the top charts. So the good thing about both the App Store and Google Play is they give you a ton of data, and you can go out and look at the apps that are being the most successful, whether it's the paid ones, the free ones, and you can also look at which ones are making the most money overall. So that's a gold mine. You can see what's really doing well in any category out there, whether it be fitness or photography or games. So I would go look at what's being successful. Then I would try to take note of the ones that I think were simpler and that I could do on a budget, where I'm not requiring somebody to invest in me, right? And once I had these lists, then I would kind of narrow it down to the ones that I think would be the most successful or the easiest to implement based on whatever my criteria were. And then I just go ahead and work with developers to execute it. And then the other thing that really shortened the development time is that I would typically start from existing code. So there are marketplaces out there where you can actually buy, you can buy code that's been completed for different things. Sometimes there's some for games. There's some that just sell fragments of code that do specific things, and you can combine those, or you can build on top of them and make them more complicated or more useful. So yeah, I had a ton of games, but they weren't all from scratch, and then some would be derivative from each other.
So do you recommend that people who are listening to this start with an existing source code because it will shorten the development time?
Yeah, so I think that there are definitely pros and cons to it. So when you're doing that, you don't have as much flexibility as if you're starting from scratch, but you can get it done quicker and faster. If you're first getting started, I absolutely recommend going that way because it's just you're gonna make mistakes no matter what, whether it's apps or whatever business you're going into. So I think it's just better to make them on the cheap and go through the whole process a couple of times and get to see what it's like to bring an app to market. And then at that point, when you get your app on the store, you start getting downloads and you see how everything works. Then you can decide if you want to build things all the way from scratch or continue to do things based on existing code.
So what are some marketplaces that our audience can go to find source code?
Okay, so on the gaming side, then there, so there's one called Chupa Mobile. That's it's spelled CHUPA Mobile, and then there's one called Game Gorillas with a Z. Then on the I guess just general apps, there's one called Code Canyon, and also there's a place where a lot of software developers post their open source code. It's called GitHub, GITHUB.
So you've done all this with no coding experience? Do you code yourself?
So I actually do know how to code. I did go to undergrad for software engineering, and I did work at that for my first job from for my first couple jobs up until 2009. Then I went to business school after that, and I really didn't code since then. So I do have some coding experience. I'm just not actually leveraging it right now. And I'm not, I probably wouldn't be the sharpest if I tried to at this point.
So you talked about putting together a team of developers. Where can our audience find developers to help work with them on their projects?
Yeah, absolutely. So I typically go to this site called Upwork.com. There are actually a few of them out there. So there's Upwork, there's Elance, there's actually Odesk and Elance combined, and they're called Upwork now. There's freelancer.com, there's Guru. Some people even use Craigslist. I probably wouldn't recommend that, but I know people that have been successful with it. There's a site called toptal.com, and that one tends to lean towards US developers. I haven't used it myself. I do know some friends who have been very happy with it. Then there's one called Two App Develop, TOAPP Develop, and yeah, I think those would be some of my recommendations. But my go-to is usually Upwork.com. The one caution I would give to people out there is that the quality of coders can vary dramatically. So you have to really be careful about who you're working with. Not all people on those sites are built the same.
I worked with my Upworker for 2 years. So once you find someone good, definitely keep them in your pocket.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I do the same thing. They're people I've been working with for years and years now.
So you were fortunate enough to sell your portfolio of games and apps. Tell us about that experience and how that came about.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. Well, actually, I guess the sale that I actually went through with was pretty straightforward. At that point, um, I knew a business broker, and he had kind of just reached out with who somebody who was looking to buy a portfolio around the size of the one that I had, and we just talked, and the numbers were right, and went through with the deal. In the past, before that, I think probably about 8 months in, there was somebody, or no, that would have been about 6 months in. 6 months after I had my first app live, somebody approached me and offered me seven figures to buy my portfolio. And so that was a more crazy experience because it was out of the blue. I just started doing this stuff, and I didn't know whether I could trust this person or not. And yeah, it was just wild. I ended up turning the thing down because I just figured that, hey, if this happened this quickly, then it's not going to be the last time it'll happen, and I would rather just bet on myself and continue to grow my skills at this anyway.
So is that a common occurrence in the app marketplace where people are buying a full portfolio?
Yeah. So nowadays, I think it is fairly common as long as you're able to meet certain. A lot of this will be based on what kind of revenue that you're bringing in on a monthly basis. So as long as you're able to meet certain hurdles and it's relatively steady, and even better if you bring other assets to the table, such as customer lists or certain intellectual property, that would like up the value of what you can sell for. But yeah, there are tons of these deals going on all the time.
So what do you think about a site like Flippa where someone can buy a fully developed app and then launch it into the App Store? Is that something you might recommend?
I haven't used Flippa myself. So the people who I worked with on this were it's a site called appbusinessbrokers.com. I know them, I trust them. Like I know that they've kind of been doing this for a long time. I know people that have used Flipper for websites, and I think that they like the experience. I heard of there was one person who I was talking to on a forum, and he mentioned that somebody had tried to do a deal with him on Flippa, and they made a winning bid, but then backed away at the last moment. So I don't know if that's, I don't know that you can blame the platform for that. I don't know if that's a common occurrence, but it's just something that I've heard happen.
So are you still producing games now or have you moved on to a new endeavor?
So yeah, I still have my app business. The main thing that I'm doing with that is I partner with people who have large audiences. So like one example is there's a big motivational speaker. Um, he has a huge audience around the world, and he wants an app to connect with his audience. So we're working on him with that, and then we'll split the revenue on that. And then I'm doing the same thing with a big fitness person as well. So doing things like that. I'm continuing to run some experiments just to stay sharp on what's going on in the marketplace. And then I also have another side to my business where I started. So I started a community for entrepreneurs, and it's to inspire, support, and educate entrepreneurs. And then under that umbrella, I started teaching folks kind of how to operate in the app game. I started like a virtual mentoring program, and I started doing that just because I get so many questions, so many requests about it all the time. So I figured, okay, let's just formalize this, let's structure it, and let's make it into a scalable way that I can help people.
So where can people go to get all of your learnings and information?
Oh, okay, cool. Well, the best place is probably just to Um, find the Daily Spark Entrepreneur Community on Facebook. I saw you just joined today. Thanks. So yeah, just find it at dailyspark.co/community, and specifically for the if you're interested in the mentoring program, then dailyspark.co/app mentor is the place to check that out.
Is there a cost associated?
Oh yeah, yeah. So the cost for that, it's $47 per month, which I think is pretty awesome, and it's just $1 to try out for. So it's $1 trial for 7 days, and if you don't like it, then that's it. You just let me know it's canceled, and there's a 30-day money back guarantee.
So do you still have your app business or have you moved on to something new?
So, oh yeah, I do have a podcast. You can check that out at dailyspark.co/podcast. And the community on Facebook is about 1,700 members. Throughout all of social media, it reaches about 80,000 people right now. That's Instagram would be the largest, then also Facebook, Twitter. Yeah.
So tell everyone how they can reach out to you and connect to you across social media.
Okay, awesome, man. Yeah. So that's Daily Spark TV on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can also find me Muoyo Okome on Facebook.
Thanks for joining us today on the last episode of Smart Brown Voices for 2017. And do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Really appreciate it, Mike. Man, I don't really do that. I always have goals. I set goals. I'm really heavy into that, and I revisit them all the time. So right now, in terms of the app mentoring program that I started, my goal for that, I want to help ultimately 10,000 people, but I want to hit that first 1,000. So I want to make that happen sometime in 2017.
Awesome, and we'll make sure that we link to the Daily Spark so people can learn more about everything that you're doing. I just signed up for your free ebook so I can learn more too about apps and getting an app up and running in the marketplace.
Oh, awesome, man.
Thanks so much for sharing all of this information. I think it's like super valuable. Our listeners are definitely entrepreneurs and they're definitely looking to get apps up and running in the marketplace. So having all this information here is super helpful. In 2017, we're definitely going to just see more and more growth in the mobile space. We're going to see more huge apps come up into the marketplace. So there's still a wealth of opportunity out there. So if you're thinking about launching an app, definitely go to dailyspark.com and learn more how to get your app up and running in the marketplace.
I think you're absolutely right. It's only going to get bigger and better. So it's a pretty exciting time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much and have a happy new year.
Thank you for having me. Happy New Year to you as well. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Thanks for listening to Smart Brown Voices with your host, Mr. Mike Street. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts and make sure to follow us on social media. This has been a Mr. Mike Street production. Join us next time for another edition of Smart Brown Voices and be inspired.